Move on to our final speaker for this morning. Science and culture, something very near and dear to the next speaker's heart. Professor Clement Imbert is a professor of materials, technology and mechanical engineering and a former dean of the Faculty of Engineering at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. He has over 160 publications covering areas of metals, particularly steel, construction materials, inspection and failure systems, steel pan technology, continuing engineering, education and technological development. He is one of the most published authors internationally in the area of hot working of tool steels and has established himself in the area of steel pan technology. Professor Imbert is a trained industrial inspector, including in non-destructive testing, and is a certified inspector of aircraft welders for the Civil Aviation Authority. The first successful attempt of mechanizing the manufacture of steel pans occurred under his stewardship when he commissioned and operated a hydrofoam press at his university's engineering workshop. He was awarded the Shakonia Medal Gold as a member of the team that developed the G-Pan. He has also been recognized by the American Society for Testing and Materials, that's the ASTM, for his discovery of reverse flow of magnetic flux in the inspection of turbine blades. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Imbert on Science and Culture.
Good morning.
Good morning.
One of the benefits of talking last is that people want to go home. So, also I had promised, I borrowed a lady's car this morning and I promised to bring it back for her before 2 o'clock. She's 6 foot tall, she's a karateka, and she grew up with Andashin and cassava in San Grande. And yam, like both. So I'll be short. Not as short as another person with my name, but I'll be short. I couldn't start without the normal salutations, especially to the front desk here. So I'll start with like wood. So I'll be short. Not as short as another person with my name, but I'll be short. I couldn't start without the normal salutations, especially to the front desk here. So I'll start with our foreign guests, if you like. So I'll start with the representative from the US Embassy. It's 2 weeks, is it? I will also go to Mr. Karuth from NIHERST. My good friend Nancy, who will ask no questions when I'm finished, because she's even better friends with the owner of the car, that 6 foot karateka, so I think she'll understand. And Jocelyn, of course, Joycelyn actually, Liam, and my co-presenters, Dr. Kalu, Dr. Murray, and Dr. Fisher. I really shouldn't be here this morning because these are people who were born in Trinidad. Even Dr. Fisher was born in Trinidad. I was almost born in Tobago. I came to Tobago at 8 months from the small island of Montserrat. Actually, the reason I spoke some patois there a little while ago is that my parents were from St. Lucia. They had 2 children in St. Lucia. They went to Dominica, they had 2 children in Dominica. They went to Montserrat, they had 2 children in Montserrat. I came to Trinidad, by which time my mother was quite aged from years to have children, that is, and my father even more so. So at the age of 63, my father had another child and my mother was 44 in Trinidad. They had to completely settle. Just a CARICOM family. I must say that I was caught in the slips, as Undine Giuseppe would say, when I was asked if I would talk. And I said, no, you honored me tonight, why do you want me to talk to you today? So Jocelyn said, Prof, We can't have 3 people coming down here to talk and you don't talk. You have to represent Trinidad. So, and Tobago, where I was almost born. So I said, Jocelyn, okay, I'll give a little talk. And I forgot about it because I was in the middle of marking exam papers, the deadline for the first set of papers, and I had extra papers to do because I was in Barbados doing some CXC things, and he said, Imbert, correct those questions for me, please. We share the same course. On the 6th, Professor Meadows could tell you he was correct in one of the courses I coordinate. Then after that were the post-grad things, and then after that a project I had to do. So I didn't sleep for the last 2 nights. But that's okay. I started this morning saying, what am I going to talk about? Because when the young lady asked me, well, Prof, what are you going to talk about? I said, I'm not sure. And she called me 2 days after, I think it was Tuesday, and said, well, Prof, we have to put something. I said, all right, science and culture. Because I'm a scientist, I believe I'm an applied scientist, and I deal a lot with PAN and things like that. Now, when I heard Dr. Fisher talk and said he almost became an engineer, I was hoping he didn't have the kind of sort of deprecating look that you know Dr. Sheldon Cooper? Most of you must have seen Dr. Sheldon Cooper on TV. This guy is a theoretical physicist. And he has a good friend. He has 4 good friends actually, 3 guys and the lady who lives next door. And one of them is an engineer. And whenever the engineer says anything, he looks at him and he says, but you are only an engineer. No, this fella is an astronaut, you know. That's a rare thing for anybody, including an engineer. But Dr. Sheldon Cooper, who's a theoretical physicist, and his sister once told somebody very proudly that he, in fact, was a rocket scientist. He was most, not just disappointed, I don't want to use the word, he was flabbergasted that his sister could refer to him as a rocket scientist as opposed to a theoretical physicist. Now he hasn't done anything yet, you know, he works in string theory. And the day that he has really found something of mild significance, he'll have to depend on engineers to bring to reality. You know, I don't want to be sacrilegious or blasphemous or anything, but engineers breathe life into things. Scientists have ideas, engineers make things happen. They make things happen. In Genesis 2:7, the big man took some dust and he breathed into the nostrils of this form that he made, and this form got life and became a man. That is what engineers do. We breathe life into the dust that scientists have in their brain. Anyway, to talk about science and culture and how they both interact and shape each other. From the very beginning, you know, the ages have been described up to now by materials. There's the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, we have the Information Age now, microelectronic revolution, if you like. And the first human artifacts that scientists have claimed they know about was a little over 2 million years ago. I don't want to get into any trouble with people who believe religiously that the world is 6,000 years old. I don't want to get into trouble. But scientists say about 2 million years ago they found some stones. They call that the Stone Age. And it took a long time for whatever kind of evolution took place. Whether we call it social evolution, biological, Darwin would say it's biological, other people would say it's social, whatever. It took a long time before they then discovered fire. That was the next stage. And having discovered fire, it changed the culture of people. They were able to stay in one place and keep warm, rather than to have to run and hide. Having discovered fire, they then discovered that they could do things. Accidentally, a lot of things happened. They discovered that they could make pottery. it was very good for making wine. People seem to have loved things like wine for a long time. Mankind likes to drink, it appears. So then around 3000 BC, so we come into the convergence of the people like me who believe in the 2 million years and the people who believe in the 6,000 years, no problem. We come to around then and we started to have things where they started to farm. They no longer had to roam to gather food and water. They started to farm. The tremendous influence that science had and discoveries, because around the same time they discovered certain ores. When it was heated, they got bronze out of it. And they could do much more with bronze and shape it much more than they could do with stones. So we see the coming together of people living in communities now, in larger communities, where the discovery of metals, the discovery of the first metal actually by mankind. And I feel very proud that the first few ages were named after materials, because I'm a material scientist, so that's good. So next came cities. When they're able to harness water, they're able to do much more with stone and brick. The Romans particularly. Actually the Greeks had discovered many more things. They were not just philosophers, they were great scientists. Many more things, pulleys, gears, well, other concepts, Archimedes' principle and so on. But it was the Romans that had to put, the Romans were really engineers. It was the Romans that had to put these things together for what we call the benefit of mankind. And that's what an engineer is called. And an engineer is called a person who exploits nature for the benefit of mankind. Then, of course, after by the way, I'd like you to see my slide. This is what my slide looks like. This is what I did this morning. I kind of had in my head while I was correcting the rest of papers and finishing our project, kind of what I was going to talk about. So I look at my little scribblings. I started to write stuff. You know when you want to read, you write it in big print. So I started to write stuff. And then I said, well listen, I have to go and pick up Professor Meadows' desk. No, I have to go down. So I started scrambling things from the internet, and this is what it looks like. And then I said, well, I have to put those things with what I write together. So I have some little print and the big print in the internet. And as true Trinidadians, we started a bit late. So he gave me a little half an hour to sit down in a little corner over there and look at what I got quickly to make sure that, as Professor Meadows said, Imbert, don't go up there and embarrass us here. You said you didn't prepare. Now, when I saw the topic of Dr. Marie's talk, I said, she's going to lead us down the path of Stephen Hawking. She didn't. And I was glad. Although there was a question asked by Christian. Christian is too smart for our own good. Because one can look at today, let's look today, contemporary. I went way back in time, and we can talk about all kinds of things. In the Industrial Revolution, for instance, where the steam engine and steam power was really the driving force of everything that happened. Again, changed how society did things. Some of the changes took a long time to play out in the rest of the world and in the whole world. The steam engine allowed for the first time non-human power to be used so successfully, non-human and animal power to be used so successfully. Mainly in industry, stationary industry, but also in trains for transportation. It changed the way people live. Science changed the way people live. The Industrial Revolution is probably the most remarkable period. It was a long time. A number of years, it wasn't 10 years, it wasn't 20 years, more like 100 years. But it took a long time. But then, one of the benefits, if I like, of the Industrial Revolution, we were able to mass produce things. So whereas artisans worked by themselves and with with some of the apprentices before, here we had people gathering in factories. Actually, the first factory more or less appeared around 1870. But it wasn't until Ford who decided that every American should have an affordable car that we really started to have things like standardization in modern standardization. And really the rapid growth of mass production. It changed where people lived. I did my master's degree in England, and it was at a university which was a very practically oriented university, Brunel University of West London. And all our projects were from industry, exactly projects from industry. And when I started to do my final project after the exams, I was sent to a little town called Corby, and British Steel had a plant there. And it's amazing. That part of the town of Corby itself, depending on the steel mill for its survival. When that particular steel mill closed, the town of Corby almost disappeared. I haven't been there for a long time, but I went back 3 years later. And it was starting to disappear. We don't have ghost towns in the Caribbean, I don't think, but we have ghost towns in many parts of the world. I thought it was only the US and other parts. But this is how science and technology affect the way we live and the things that we do. This has happened with the closure of many US bases in the United States, where entire communities depended on the existence of the base for their living. We know the negative effects of the base in Trinidad. Those of you who are old enough and know of Sparrow's first major calypso, Gina and Dinah, Rosita and Clementina. What we was talking about there was the closure of the base in Wallafield. It happened just after the Second World War. Well, a few years after the Second World War, the base actually closed. And we was talking about was the effect. In fact, this was a social effect that the Americans here had on the society, including, of course, the procreating effect. There are many people around who are semi-Americans there. But to fast forward, there are many examples over the years that one can trace the effect that science has had on culture. I will end with a specific aspect of culture, but I'm taking culture in broad sense here. It was something that just flowed out of my head when this young lady, I can't remember who it is, pressed me and said, "But Professor, we must have a topic, we have to print something and we have to put a picture," and so I said, all right, science and culture. So we come to the information age, and we talk about the internet. You heard about the internet, you heard about machines. I could stand here as Dr. Fisher say and talk for 2 hours, as people say, but you know, you could BS for as long as you want. Well, I hope there's not too much BS here, but I won't talk for 2 hours today. I'm accustomed to doing that to my students. And you're not my students, you're a little older than that. So take the internet, wonderful tool, but look at the negatives of the internet. Internet addiction, which leads to other addictions. Addiction to pornography and gambling are probably two of the most. We hear about cyberbullying and things like that, but those are two ones that strike us a lot. That people get addicted to pornography, they get addicted to the internet. It's much more pervasive than it was before. But then what about the question of social interaction? Now, there was a book, I think I have the name of the book here. I can't see it right now, but it is Johnson's. Yes, The Flight from Conversation, a book written about the internet. And a study that was done, part of it is, or part of the book relates to that study, where a lot of young people believe that they're more connected because they're connected to a whole heap of people on the internet, Facebook and all the other social media. But really, they show how disconnected they are. Because we don't evolve as quickly as human beings emotionally and so on. We don't evolve as rapidly as the machines. When the machines get rid of us, I suppose the machines will evolve. Their emotional intelligence will evolve as quickly as their other intelligences. By the way, Stephen Hawking said we have to be very careful, you know. Stephen Hawking says there's no law that precludes the coming together of particles in the human brain, that there's no law that prevents similar compilation of particles in a machine. To quote the Bible again, we talk about children making children, but Hawkins is really talking about robots making robots. And if you remember, way back in 1968, 2001, Space Odyssey, HAL. HAL stands for something, but the robot HAL. You didn't see a robot like, and if you remember, way back in 1968, 2001, Space Odyssey, HAL. HAL stands for something.
IBM.
The robot HAL. You didn't see a robot like something walking like that. HAL's face appeared like an eye or something, but HAL was a robot. And these two guys on Discovery 1, this space aircraft, found that HAL was making a few mistakes. And they say, hey boy, we have to decommission HAL. HAL won't cause us trouble, because HAL was responsible for the control of Discovery 1. So the two guys, Bowman and Poole, decided, hey, we have to disable HAL. And they didn't speak. They turned off these speakers, but they didn't know how to read their lips. So HAL said, you want to disable me? Well, I go disable you first. So HAL went on a rampage, because HAL said he was programmed to complete his mission. Oh, you will stop me. This is what I'm here for. I was born for this. So HAL was able to kill Poole. When he tried to kill Bowman, fella escaped and he hid. HAL killed everybody else. Bowman was eventually able to decommission HAL slowly, bit by bit. Let us hope we have a lot of Dave Bowmans when the time comes, so that Hawkins' possible prediction doesn't come true. Because what what he is saying, I'm doing like Trinidad. Trinidad's love S, you know, and quotes and wrongs, you know. So I just like Trinidad. The man is Hawking, not Hawkins. My apologies. You see, I wasn't born here, but I'm actually. You know, I came to Trinidad and out from Tobago when I was 4.5. I went to private school. My father was in magistrate in the Eastern County, so we lived up inside Raleigh. And I went to school. Learned to talk in Tobago with St. Lucian parents, so you could imagine the accent. So I went to private school and the people started calling me Green Indian. So I went to my father. I said, why are they calling me Green Indian? He said, son, is the way you talk. Well, I learned Trini one time. Overnight I learned Trini because, I mean, when they were calling me the Green Indian, you could see it was a derogatory kind of thing. You know your Trinis already. Where you from Guav? Where in Guav? Some little town down in Carriacou or somewhere there. He's a Green Indian, I Green Indian. You said, Vince, no, how you're talking to? No, Professor Mellors, I don't think we say that about Barbados, do we? No, we don't. No, Professor Mellors like sleeping. So, anyway, I learned to talk Trini one time. So here I'm growing up, talking Trini at school and in the streets. Hearing my parents talk patois, because they love to talk it. And not the way Trinidadians, I understand, used to talk patois, they didn't want people to know. They just spoke it among themselves. And we at home, they were comfortable with it. They both spoke French, but they didn't speak French. They spoke. So I'm hearing patois, so I kind of learned patois. And of course, when I used any funny Trini expression, my father says, son, no, it's not exactly that, you know, it's this. You wouldn't tell me, don't talk Trini, and he said, but it wasn't that. So I really grew up loving languages, and I did languages at school, I only did science when I went to university. It was very, very, very hard. Well, people like Nancy, or Dr. Valerie Stout, sorry, I know Nancy. When they were doing chemistry and so on, I was also doing chemistry. There were 3 lovely women I said, they used to wear short miniskirts. This was 1969-70. Valerie Stout, Sharon Boucher, or Bouchette or whatever, and another one from South, what's her name? Kathleen. She was married to the engineer fellow. These 3 highbrow women, boy, they used to drive me crazy. Anyhow, they still drive me crazy, I'll talk about the honesty now. So my mother would be very proud to hear that this fella who did languages at school, French and literature, that he turned out not just to be a scientist, but an icon. And I'm not sure how proud Dr. Sheldon Cooper will be of me. I mean, Sheldon really looks at his friend. His name is Howard Wolowitz. He looks at Howard with real scorn. You're just an engineer, so do him talk to me. But I don't think he might be, I even want him to be proud of me. But anyway, let me finish before I go on too long about my escapades with the steel pan, science and culture. Brian Copeland, many years ago, Brian did his master's at University of Toronto, UFT, or as they say, Toronto, as they say over there, Toronto. So he did his master's, and then he came back to Trinidad. He was hired by the university. And he wanted to do his PhD on PAN, the amplification of PAN. And one of his mentors told him, you want to do your PhD on PAN? You want to be mad, PAN? That? Well, he didn't, and he went to California and did it in control systems and so on. He regrets it up to today. He only told me that after I had a similar experience. In fact, I started my PhD in Trinidad here, and using the same hydroforming process that I used at Kariri to discover much more about it and in terms of ozonic pan. However, my supervisor left. Believe it or not, the university did not want MIC. They didn't want to pay MIC to make the tools that I had to make. We didn't have the skill in the workshop to make it. So I had to abandon that, unfortunately. And I said, well, I'll not do a PhD in Trinidad. This is nonsense. I want to work on something like this. So I went to Canada and did it, Montreal. Not full time. I wasn't spending any winter in Montreal. So I would leave here in June. In those days, the university started in October. And I spent June, July, August, September, 4 months. I did that for 7 years. So I did my PhD part-time in Montreal. But that's another story. So here it is, I did my PhD in something else. And one day, there's a guy called Achong in physics. He's doing a lot of work on the sort of theoretical aspects of the pan. Some good mathematical theoretical work. And I was looking through the journals, and I saw there was a fellow called Lawrence Moore from the University of Texas in El Paso that had done the kind of work that I had done on pan. And he had published a lot of the things that I had kind of discovered but never published. Because I was told by several people, including when I was working at Kariri, where everything was confidential, that you can't give away the secrets of Trinidad and Tobago's culture. And here it is, Moore was publishing things that I had discovered 10 years before. Moore was a metallurgist that went on a cruise. He saw pan. And he said, but wait, there's a metal drum that they sink that's something like this. Let me find out what's going on here. How was this thing shaped? Why do they get the notes out of it? And Lauren, El Paso, if you remember the Marty Robbins or whatever, the song of this West Texas girl or so. It's on the border of Juarez, that infamous city, just on the border. Actually, I went and spent 6 weeks with Mull, published 3 papers with Mull on pan. Because when I started to find out from this guy, please send me your papers. He said, well, wait now, I would love to have somebody from Trinidad who's a scientist who's interested in pan. Why don't I come down there? I said, Chief, we have the facilities and the money and the interest. Why don't I come up there? He says, brilliant. So I went and spent 6 weeks, 6.5 weeks in El Paso. Actually, I used to walk across 2 bridges to go across to Juarez with the fellows from the university sometimes to eat something and we'd come back. The first day we went, actually, they said, maybe let's go now. I said, no, I'm looking for a passport. They said, no, you don't need a passport. Going to Mexico, the Americans will tell me nothing, the Mexicans will tell me nothing. I look like one in any case. When I was coming back, the border guard asked, you guys are American, are you? So I said, no, I'm not. So he asked for the passport. And he took about 5 minutes going through my passport because he doesn't know which Tobago is from. He had to go and look at some book. And right there, I have my visa, but he has to look at that book to make sure Tobago exists, and so on and so on. And then he let me in. So I went there, did some work with this guy, and thank God I went there. He had all the equipment. He had money that he was using from a grant where he was doing some military research. He had a student who had just finished his research and writing up his thesis. This guy was from Mexico and did more research on your metallurgy and how you get the sound out of the notes of a pan than anybody else that I know. Just one more story about, we have tried. One of the things is that we got some money from the government, but it was to discover, to make a new pan, a bigger pan, which we successfully did, but not to do the research on it. And of course, there's so much controversy with that, I mean, there's no money really to do that kind of research. One more story. A student of mine, I got a scholarship from him through UTT. It's a little known fact that I was the main sort of support, technical support of Professor Julian in setting up UTT. When UTT's history is being written, I must tell them that because I think all of them have forgotten it. So anyway, before I go on to that, Mr. Ryan, let me just thank NIHERST. By the way, I must thank NIHERST after saying from Mr. Boy, yes, Jocelyn. I had recommended 2 of the pan pioneers. The other one was living in the States, and he had already got an honorary doctorate from the university, which I had actually recommended, and thank God the university took it up. So the 3 pioneers I'm talking about, my good friend Eddie Hart always tells me that there's a 4th, but the 3 ones are Ellie Manet, Anthony Williams, and Bertie Marshall. So Williams and Bertie Marshall, who I worked with on the Kariri project, I had a bit of convincing to do, but NIHERST, in fact, when I gave them I told them that these guys were what I call experimental scientists. And did in fact make these 2 guys icons of science. And that was something I thought was very big on NIHERST. It is one of the things that NIHERST does. NIHERST and myself, we go back a long, long way. And people who know me and Manchuka, since the days of, I can't remember what it was. I was trying to remember with Christian. NTCD, something like that. They were, right, so NTDC. They were on the campus for a little while. Then they went to Val Park. And then they went all over the place. And you're still all over the place. So I must really thank NIHERST for making these 2 guys icons of science. These 2 men. But this story, this guy, this young guy, I can call his name Soren Maloney. He came to me because he was one of my proteges. He said, Doc, I want to do a PhD on the PAN. I said, no problem, write up a proposal. By the way, I had very few grad students. That's the problem of UWI. There are very few grad students. So I envy these guys who have 50 doctoral students. But if I have 50 doctoral students, I'm sure I have about 1,000 publications, and I'll milk them fellas to the bone. I would have milked them to the bone as these guys do. Anyway, so Soren did a presentation. Then he came to me, he said, you know, you recommend me for a scholarship from UDT, and they given me the scholarship and I took me to Cambridge. We had about 4 people in Cambridge at the time in their PhDs. He says, I had to make a choice whether I go to Cambridge or whether I do the PAN project with you. I said, well, you man, you getting a scholarship to go to Cambridge University and you're telling me you had to make a choice? He says, yes, I really prefer to stay here and do the thing in PAN. I said, no, here what to do, let's try a shot. Take the same proposal and give it to UTT. And I'm going to talk to the guys in UTT, remember? Fellas like Julian and Moko, those were my pals. And I helped Julian do the thing. So I said, let's take a shot and see. You know, he presented the thing to UTT. A lady saw it, and she has been so fascinated with PAN over the years that she jumped at it. And this guy did his PhD at the University of Cambridge in PAN. I don't think we have had anybody from UWI who has done their PhD. Oh yes, sorry, I mustn't say that. Fazil Mudin with Dr. Copeland. But there are several others who have done it away. And one of the things that I think we can do, Dr. Fisher mentioned, is that we should bring people down here. I think we should do it the other way. We should have our scientific diaspora invite people from here to come to use their superior facilities over there, and the grad students, that cheap labor that we professors all use, especially away, to work and get the experience. The problem is most of them stay when they get a good life, but many of them will come back. And I think that is one of the benefits of bringing these people here. Let them meet people, and let them make contacts, see people with the machine vision and so on, and we benefit like that. So, as I said, I haven't spoken about half of the things that I had on my little scribblings. I can pull things out of anywhere, talk about science and culture. And then I have this tall 6-foot karateka waiting for me to remember how late. So, thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you again, Professor Imbert. You were indeed a bit all over the place, but I'm sure the message was well received. You mentioned 2001: A Space Odyssey about the artificial intelligence. That's a movie from your time. I'd like to point at a movie from my time. I'm pretty sure we all know about the Avengers movie. Next year, the movie hasn't come out yet. The new one is actually about the Age of Ultron. It's about artificial intelligence taking over the world.
The Age of Destruction, the fall of the Transformer series. This last is up to date.
Well, I apologize. 2 years later. At this point in time, I'd like to invite. I would like to give my closing remarks at this point in time. I know we have went through a nice long morning. You all have heard a lot from Professor Michael Fisher, Dr. Murray, Professor Kalu, and Professor Imbert. I'd like to thank you all for coming this morning and sharing what you had with us. I'd also like to thank Mr. Weeks from the Embassy of the United States. Without his sponsorship, we would not have this morning possible as well as the University of Trinidad and Tobago, Professor Diane Rises and Professor Valerie Stout as his representative today. We'd like to thank you.
Actually representing UTT.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd like to thank you for representing UTT and making sure today's proceedings was possible. I'd like to thank our board member, Mr. Cecil Caruth, Acting President, Ms. Joycelyn Leong, Professor Winston Mellows, other specially invited guests. Attendees, inventors, scientists of the future, thank you all for coming here today. Well, I know we have a few students here as well. Thank you for coming here today, and we look forward to seeing you and working with you in the future.